Welcome to On the Point Podcast, a podcast for all things Overwatch with a heavy focus on League, discussing roster moves, weekly matchups, and the Melee. I don't actually have an air horn noise to edit in there, and I don't think I would if I did, because I like doing that.
It's a 5-second Google job.
Yes, it's a 5-second Google job, but then I have to edit? Anyway, I can do it myself and it's fine, which is kind of how this podcast goes, just kind of in general.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
Anyway, yeah, well, welcome back to the Madhouse. I am Katie. I am the support main.
I'm CJ. I'm the tank main.
And we're here to talk about more Overwatch than I think we've seen packed in a weekend in a very long time.
Yeah, and I loved it. I've always been a fan of the tournament format to begin with. I like, as much as I enjoy Overwatch League and having like the full season, this really reminded me how much I missed having just tournaments with the highest level teams playing in them. And holy fuck, we got some great games, especially because, and I'm going to go out on a record and say this, because they didn't have to come up with their entire game plan in 4 days.
Hero pools. Yeah, I can appreciate hero pools for normal play. I do like tournament play, but I also think it's one of those things where I wouldn't like it all the time. Partially because it was all squeezed into 3 days, and that was so much Overwatch, my god.
Yeah.
And partially because I think if we had it all the time, it's one of those things where, you don't have dessert every day of the week. You have it a couple days, and you appreciate it. If you have dessert all the time, you get tired of dessert.
My counterpoint is, 1, then you're not having good enough dessert. And 2, you're making the assumption that a tournament is always going to be packed in so tightly. Like, when Apex was the biggest thing in Overwatch, and yes, there is a tournament, I know I mention it every time, there's a tournament called Apex. It's not me talking about Apex Legends. This predates that, but the point I'm trying to make is that tournament took place over weeks. So it's not necessarily a format that we need to have take place in such a compact period of time.
Well, then I would think we would need to do different from single elimination then. Because then it's, congratulations, your team played once. Good job, everybody. Good job, Vancouver. We love you. You tried really fucking hard.
Yeah.
They did. They tried really fucking hard.
They improved a lot going into that.
They did.
So, yeah, but just to, as an example of kind of the way you could do it, in the way that it worked in Apex is they had 2 round-robin group stages where there were 4 groups of 4, and the top 2 teams would advance from each group. They would play in another round-robin group stage of 2 groups of 4, with the top 2 teams from each group advancing to best-of-7 playoffs.
Okay.
So, yeah, like, it would, you'd have, like, 1 or 2 games from each group, from, like, 2 of the groups each night. So you'd get, like, 4 games a day during the weekends, and then, spaced out over the course of a couple weeks.
So this might be something worth going to, but I don't think it's worth switching horses in the middle of the stream for this season.
Yeah, no, I think it's something to consider going forward, of course, but I think that and the possibility of Blizzard opening things back up to third-party tournaments are hugely promising developments for the continued health of the Overwatch scene.
Yeah, and we did see that the YouTube viewership went up pretty sharply over the weekend for the tournament. Part of me is wondering if that's because it was Memorial Day weekend. And I know we're all in quarantine right now, we're not doing a lot, etc. But there's just something about a 3-day weekend where if you want to spend your entire Saturday watching Overwatch, you don't feel like you've lost a day for the weekend. You don't have a day to do whatever because Sunday will also be watching Overwatch. Like, it feels like you have a little more wiggle room on a 3-day weekend.
Yeah, I think that that's definitely the case. And I think part of it is just the fact that having things being in a tournament structure, I feel like incentivizes watching the matches more because they have a more direct impact on your team's performance in this thing. Like,
True.
hypothetically, if your team is going up against a really good team or a rival, or your win-loss record is close and we're hitting that point where you need to start racking up wins going into playoffs, there's incentive to watch it. But if there's 28 games in a season and you're like 3 or 4 games in and it's just like, all right, my team's not playing, so why do I need to watch this?
True. Although I feel like the way that we structured the league may have been structured a little more on real life sports where you have a whole bunch of games and then there's a tournament at the end of the season. If you want to call it your Stanley Cup, your Super Bowl, your whatever, based on your win
Mm-hmm.
loss record and play ins, which is how we had this structured with the stage finals and then the season finals. So, doing a series of small tournaments and then possibly a larger one at the end, so a couple of weeks of regular play and then a tournament based on that, I think might be a good way to go, or at least a good intermediary.
Well, yeah, and honestly, that's the way it is in a lot of different scenes throughout esports. Like, the Overwatch League format is fairly novel. It's not the way that things are normally done. Like, if you look at things like StarCraft or CSGO, they have tournaments scattered throughout the year where strong performances in those are what enable you to like rack up the points to earn an invitation to like the World Championship at the end of the year.
Okay, yeah, it's baby's first esport over here.
Well,
So,
again, that's why you have me here. But yeah,
exactly.
yeah, no, like
Exactly.
honestly, the Overwatch League's whole approach is dramatically different from the way that esports usually is formatted.
Well, and I wonder if it's not set up a little more like meat sports to try to get more meat sports viewers.
No,
And
no, I think that
honestly,
was the idea.
well, and given that meat sports aren't happening right now, I feel like a marketing push would be one of the best damn things you could do. We have, and I've only seen one of them, we have those videos with I believe he's a pro football player whose name I am completely blanking on, casting with Sideshow. Like they're having those cute little videos and they're hysterical. But now I have to look them up and figure out who it is. So, more things like that, more things where, okay, the fans of this human are going to show up and watch this weird thing. Oh, he's talking about Overwatch League. Well, what the hell is that? Well, let's,
Mhm.
yeah. So I'm absolutely scrolling down the video feed. Yeah, it's not giving me his name. Thanks for that. Spice Adams.
I don't know who that
I
is
am
because
not
I don't.
familiar with who Spice Adams is.
Apparently, he was a football defensive tackle for the 49ers, the Chicago Bears. Yeah. Yeah,
Okay,
so
yeah, yeah.
that'll.
So this makes sense to me. Meat sports isn't happening right now. Get some meat sports people in, have some fun. Their fans will follow them and then be like, "Hey, what's this Overwatch thing?" and then just go. Like I think this is a good plan. And
Yeah.
yeah, we've had again, the Valiant have worked with the LA Kings and had team nights with them. Like maybe bring in one of the Kings players and have them do whatever. Yeah, a lot of people living out in LA who may or may not be available for something like this over Zoom, over I'm spitballing,
Yeah.
obviously. But
And another thing to consider is, well, look at the people. So San Francisco Shock is owned by a company called NRG Esports, and they have teams in a whole bunch of different esports, but basically if you look at people who are big name investors in NRG, you've got a lot of people you could rope into that, including Alex Rodriguez, fucking Jimmy Rollins from the fucking Philadelphia Phillies and the Dodgers, and Shaq.
Yeah. I keep forgetting that Shaq is somehow a part of this. But could you imagine Shaq sitting down with, like, for an interview with Custa? Or just something completely ridiculous?
The
Could
thing
you
is,
imagine Shaq on the desk? Would that not be
I would love it.
wonderful? Would that not be wonderful? So yeah, so
I would
this is
want
what we're
him.
saying.
I would want him to be like, and this is just me like wishing he was still in Overwatch League as well. But can you imagine like Sleepy interviewing Shaq
God, yes.
just for the one, the chaotic energy of Sleepy, but two, the size difference between those two humans. I want the smallest player in the Overwatch League to interview Shaq. That's what I want. Just because that juxtaposition is hilarious to me.
Okay, well, put Zoe in Flats and have her interview him. Or
Perfect.
next to, is it Wolf that's really short? It's not Wolf, it's Hex,
Yes, Hex.
who they had to keep putting on a box.
Yeah, Hex is short.
Have Hex interview him.
Yeah.
Things of wonder and glory. So yes, we need more of that, but we should probably move on to the first point in our outline, the May Melee. Let's get back to this. Alrighty, we have starting off. Let's hit the APAC division first, just because there's a few fewer matches to talk about. But I also think we have the single craziest match in the entire tournament to hit here.
We have several of them, like several just because that first night was a night of a lot of upsets. The Seoul Dynasty, who have been very wildly vacillating in terms of quality, seems to have figured out how to play the spam and rush comp very well and takes out the Hangzhou Spark 3-0. They slapped them.
Which was not expected in any capacity, given that Hangzhou has been relatively steady. Like, we made our predictions and we thought that Hangzhou would pull ahead easy.
Yeah. Chengdu Hunters goes up against NYXL, and that match was also surprising, not because the outcome was different. We expected New York to win, and they did, but it was 3-2. It was a very narrow margin of victory.
Yeah, we were expecting New York to win handily because it's Chengdu, and you never really know with Chengdu, but you pretty much always know with New York.
Yeah. Speaking of teams we don't really necessarily know all about, London Spitfire had a very close match against the Shanghai Dragons, which Shanghai came out 3-2 victors of. But again, London brought it close. They made it a competitive series that was a lot of fun to watch, and I think we got more out of them in that than any of us really expected to see.
Yeah, London's kind of been our weird dark horse team just because, again, they dropped almost their entire lineup, picked up a whole bunch of people, and then went silent for 10 weeks because, coronavirus is happening.
Yeah.
So, and their performance has been up and down. And so seeing this was just nuts. Like, they really pulled it together.
Mm-hmm.
Not enough because the Dragons are the Dragons, but nonetheless.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, this tournament had a lot of teams really performing to a level we haven't seen from them. And I think part of it comes down to the fact that, like, so as someone who's coached teams in the past and is coaching a team now, there is a lot that you need to tackle at once in when you're dealing with a shifting meta. Because you need to, one, have your players all know what they need to be playing and the appropriate positionings and where and when to use their cooldowns. Basically, you need everyone to know their part and the part they play in that larger picture. But you also have to help them build synergy and develop all these good habits and comms and all these other things that you don't necessarily see on game day, but are a huge part of building a well-oiled machine like when you're in the lobby. And that is very, very hard to do, even with a team that knows each other and is, comfortable with each other and can play with each other very cleanly. Um, and London Spitfire were building an entirely new roster and going up against a lot of teams that had that experience, and players who were a lot more tested. So it was kind of an uphill battle from them to begin with, and then even more so when hero pools became a thing.
But it looks like taking that time is starting to pay off for them. Again,
Yeah,
weren't able to pull it out completely because we are looking at the dragons here, but brought it close, which is better than we've seen from them.
yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the they if you go back to our initial power rankings, they're one of those teams that, like, obviously we had a lot of, we'll see, but that was one of those teams that I'm like, this is either going to work out very well or be a complete mess. Probably the latter, but they have the widest, I think, like, range of possible outcomes out of the various teams in the league, because even though these players are untested, they got picked up for a reason.
Yeah. I feel like that's most players. Like,
Yeah,
even if we haven't seen them in league, even if we haven't really seen a lot of them, they have the skill set. They didn't just
yeah,
pick names out of a hat.
absolutely. So up next, Seoul Dynasty took on the Guangzhou Spark, and in a
See, that's on
you
me. I wrote the wrong thing. I pulled a I think that was that Sideshow or was that Bren that did that?
damn
Regardless,
it, who
that
put
was on
Guangzhou
me.
Spark on the teleprompter? Anything you put
Me.
on that prompter, I will read.
You realize that lends itself to certain abuses.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know, but
So
now that I know it's a possibility, it's going to be happening less. I just couldn't, like, miss the opportunity for the joke. Also,
oh yeah.
also rest in peace, Fred Willard.
Yeah. Yep.
Um, so, yeah, Guangzhou Charge, who
Hey.
we thought were going to be, probably the other half of the finals against the Shanghai Dragons.
And
Um,
also the first seed in the APAC division.
yeah, first seed, the
Seed number
guys.
1.
They get edged out by the Seoul Dynasty in another very close 3-2.
So
Um,
Seoul has just been playing out of their goddamn minds this tournament.
well, it was like I said, they're very wildly up and down, and if they can perform at the level that we saw them in a couple of the matches leading up to this, they have a very strong chance. Like I said, they're probably the biggest dark horse in this division, even though the big three were going to be Shanghai, Guangzhou, and New York. And speaking of two of those three teams, the next match was not close.
No.
Shanghai had New York's number and broke them over their knee like Bane. An absolute 3-0 stomping, which, oof.
Man. And sadly, you look at something like that and then you kind of look at Chengdu and New York and go, is this Chengdu playing up or is this New York playing down?
It's hard to
Especially given
tell.
that those matches are back to back or
It, it,
back to back days.
it is genuinely hard to tell. I feel like New York would have been doing most of their preparation for Shanghai, though, just because, well, it's much more likely that you're going to face them than London.
Yes.
Um, so I don't know. It's just Shanghai had them downloaded, and New York also just, there are some games where you can tell that they just haven't quite figured out how to fit all of their pieces together in certain compositions or with, various new members and all that.
Yeah.
Because despite how good they've looked, and they've had some very, very strong performances over the course of this season so far, they definitely haven't looked as impeccably clean as they have in seasons past.
Yeah. Well, I honestly, for a lot of these teams with, oh, hey, they haven't looked as good as last year. Well, coronavirus is a bitch. Playing from home is a bitch. Like,
Oh, yeah.
there are some parts where
Well,
I'll,
I'm saying even
yeah.
before that, like
Yeah.
in the early home stands, New York definitely had some up and down performances. Like, even in the
True.
wins they had in those early homestands, I would say some of them were not as dominant as maybe we would have expected them to be. And as good as a player like Who Are You is, I don't necessarily know that he's found his home in this roster just yet. And that's just one example of other little things where it's just like, so they're a team that is firing on like 5 out of 6 cylinders, and which one is misfiring seems to just rotate week to week.
That's not good. Not for a 6-person game.
No, but I think it's kind of an apt metaphor for what we're seeing from them right
Yeah.
now. Moving
So we'll
on.
see what New York looks like when we come back from our couple weeks break.
Yeah, yeah, and I do feel bad for them because it's just another thing people are gonna make fun of them for in terms of just choking, which is just that sucks, and that eventually has to kind of start getting into your head.
And I mean, there's also a difference between choking and the other team completely having you red. Because if they've got you red, what are you going to do?
Pretty
So
much.
this isn't just them falling apart. This is Shanghai showing up and bulldozering them off a cliff.
Yeah, and this is a weird poll, but you're gonna get what I'm saying in a moment. But
Ooh,
just
hit me. Hit me.
I feel like the NYXL are the Ash Ketchum of Overwatch League because they
Perpetually
consistently,
10.
well, I was going to say they consistently beat everyone else until they get to like the top tier. Ash, up until recently, always lost the Pokemon League, but beat everyone else in battles.
He did beat the Orange League. There is that. Everyone forgets that, but that's a thing. Um, yeah.
He did, but it wasn't like quite the same thing as it was kind of presented in the
Yeah.
other. Yeah.
But you're right. You're right. It's that until we get to the dramatic stakes of the tournament, and I will forever remember like NYXL being the dominant team season 1. All right, we're gonna have the finals at the Barclay Center, and then them getting knocked out really quickly, and I'm like, oh, I know so many NYXL fans in New York who are gonna be heartbroken.
Oh my god, yeah. It definitely like it's
It's a
brutal.
thing. Yeah. So this is yet another NYXL makes the tournament. NYXL does not go all the way. We're
Yeah.
not going to accuse them of choking or sandbagging or whatever, because again, it was a case of Shanghai showing up being 10,000% prepared and just yeet. And that's
Yeah.
all.
And
So,
so yeah.
speaking of Shanghai,
Yeah,
God bless them.
the finals of the
God.
tournament comes down to the Seoul Dynasty, who are looking, otherworldly on their run to this, and Shanghai, who have been looking similarly dominant throughout the whole season, and it
So,
goes
I
to
have
7 maps.
I have to tell you, when I did not stay up to watch this because I wanted to be a vaguely functional human being on Saturday, and this, or on Sunday rather, and this was, I was like, all right, whatever, I'm going to bed. I'll wake up and look at the results. And I wake up and look at the results, and it's against Seoul for one, and 4-3 for another. And I'm like, oh my God, what happened? And it wasn't until a couple hours later that I found out that it was a reverse sweep. And I went, what?
Yeah, Seoul
What?
Dynasty took the 3-0 lead very commandingly, very quickly, and Shanghai clawed it back the whole fucking way.
It was completely batshit insane. And keep in mind that map 2 of that 3-map lead was your classic Shang 9, where
It
they just It wasn't as bad. I will go on this side of the argument. I don't think it was as bad as the Youngjin C9 because Youngjin just kind of sauntered off the cart thinking that it was already there.
Yeah.
This was a case of someone needs help and both supports went to go do their job, unfortunately leaving the cart. Like, it was real bad, especially in
Mhm.
these circumstances, but it wasn't necessarily I'm leaving to go get kills or I'm leaving because I'm not thinking about it. It was my job is to support them. I'm going to go do that. Oh wait, we didn't confer, did we?
Yeah, that's that. It wasn't as bad, but it was pretty bad.
Oh, it was pretty bad. You don't want to do that in a tournament.
You really
Every
don't.
San Francisco Shock fan just kind of stares into the void at that point.
Oh my god, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was an incredible series that I really recommend everyone go watch if you want to see one, just a fucking great series, and two, the current meta played to a really, really high level. And also, one thing I wanna point out here that is something I'm glad they brought up on the cast, and it was kind of a turning point in this series because for the first half, Shanghai Dragons were playing Stand One as their main tank, and in the second, they tag in Fearless. Now, most people in the Overwatch League will only know Fearless by his performance in the ill-fated Season 1 Shanghai Dragons. But the thing you need to know about why he got signed to that team is the fact that he was a rising star on Element Mystic prior to that. He was a main tank who had a ton of potential, and was on a roster with people like Hanbin and Sparkle and like it was an incredibly strong roster of players. And so he was considered to be one of the better main tanks in Korea and was one of those guys who was really making a name for himself at the time of him getting picked up. And then he gets put onto the well
The
the
Shanghai
the
Dragons in
Shanghai
season
Dragons
one.
in season 1,
Yep.
and they are a team with a so I just want to point something out real quick. The roster that he was playing on, you won't know Vesta, but Guard was in the Overwatch League, and I believe he still is. I think he's on yeah, no, he's coaching for Runaway now. He was on the
Okay.
on London in season 2. But the other people on this
Yeah,
team,
that's where I know the name.
Sparkle, Rappel, Jexay, and Dako.
All of these good humans.
Yeah. So basically, they put together an incredibly talented roster, and he was having a lot of very good performances with them. But when you go to the season 1 Shanghai Dragons, that team was such a clusterfuck top to bottom. You had a support line that was probably the worst in the Overwatch League. You had, until RUI took over, abysmal coaching with minimal support to try and help the team both adapt and gel as a unit from the organization. They didn't have a translator for a long stretch of time.
Oh
So
my god, they pulled a Vancouver?
no, Vancouver
Or
pulled a
Vancouver
Shanghai.
pulled a them. Ugh.
Yeah, up until RUI got hired, they had abysmal coaching. They gave the team very little support. They worked them, to a ridiculous extent, and a lot of those players were mentally boomed anyway from just the shit they were going through. No one could have looked good on that team,
Yeah.
or at least no one could have looked anywhere near as good as they actually are.
This is the argument that he kept having with people who said that Gregory was overplayed and overhyped. Like, yeah, she has middling tank numbers. Yeah, she has middling tank numbers in a bottom of the barrel team.
Yeah.
So it's you know, you got to look at the context.
Yeah,
Which I'm
absolutely.
still mad that they're not playing her. I will never not be mad that they're not playing her. Get your
Yeah,
shit together, Shanghai.
I completely agree, though I will say Void is tearing it up right now. Void
Oh
is
God, yeah, no, I'm not disputing that. I'm just saying, shit or get off the pot.
yes. So yeah, after the Shanghai Dragons situation, he gets dropped down to Team CC, which is one of the it's the academy team for the Shanghai Dragons. And so he played in contenders for a few seasons there before getting called up here. And I feel like now we're seeing what this guy was capable of all along, and just give this man some fucking love and respect, because holy crap, this is a redemption story I don't think enough people are talking about.
Living up to that name. Yeah. And that was the big change between maps. You swap out one player and suddenly everything gels.
Well,
And I mean,
I
those last
do.
4 maps were still batshit insane and still extremely hard, fought like tooth and nail. Seoul was so ready to have that championship, and Shanghai was not ready to be done.
Yeah, and it comes down to some small things. Like, I think one of the things that hurt Seoul on Gibraltar was that Prophet was very clearly not as comfortable on the Echo as he is on the Tracer, and didn't get the value that we know that he's capable of getting. On Busan, it's something I could get into for a long time, but I want to sit down and really like analyze the game first. But it was a lot of little things Shanghai was doing to level up as soon as they had Fearless in, and just a lot of really great adjustments. Like, I cannot say enough good about their performance.
Well, and if you honestly, the one that I remember most was Junkertown, because Junkertown will always stick in my mind, and because at that point, Brandon Sideshow had just transcended reality, and we're talking about this whole thing being decided on Junkertown, which does make me happy. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
also very happy they didn't play 3 control maps in a row as initially proposed. But Fitz just losing his goddamn mind,
Yeah.
playing incredibly well on the Widowmaker. But the one time that he loses that Widow battle is when Shanghai just snowballs it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and that's such a big deal. Like, Fitz was doing incredibly well for Seoul. And just that one time that he goes down first, Shanghai is able to capitalize on that opportunity. And I think that's a good thing to be able to do. I mean, sky blue, water wet, but yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just watch the game.
Just
Just watch
watch
the
the game.
It's absolutely worth your time.
It's 2.5 hours of your life. It's a long movie. You can just not watch the third Batman movie again and instead watch this. Or not watch Titanic, or not watch Inception, or not watch whatever. You know, those things that you've seen 1,000 times already. Just watch this.
I was going to say, are we harping on Christopher Nolan specifically until you mentioned Titanic? Although Christopher Nolan just said one of the dumbest things I've ever heard in my fucking life.
Oh, sidebar. What is it? Is it
Okay,
appropriate for the podcast?
I mean, it's not relevant, but it's appropriate.
Oh, since when do we care about keeping it relevant?
Yeah,
You
let
have
me.
me.
So, this is from an interview with him. The world is founded on paradoxes, he answers, grinning. 2 plus 2 is 4, and we can see why that's true, we can observe that, but when I talk to my kids about numbers, they already have completely taken aboard the idea that you can't ever have 2 completely identical objects, meaning, on some level, that numbers don't exist. Everything in life is inherently paradoxical. You can't prove anything. But we accept that, and we live with that, and we just sort of deal with it, and that's what you try to do with a film like Inception, is to pull at a few of those threads. One of my favorite brain teasers, or things to occupy my mind with when I have spare time, is that if you look in a mirror, left and right are reversed, but up and down are not. How is that possible? I've been trying to wrap my I've been trying to wrap my head around that for decades, and I make no progress.
You've seen that little "Who is that other dog in the mirror" comic? That's Christopher Nolan. Oh, that brought me joy. Oh my god. All right. Inception and Interstellar have now been fully explained to me. Mirrors, how do they work? Well, not unlike magnets.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I almost want to apologize to the Insane Clown Posse for giving them shit all these years, but like, because I feel like we've hit a new fucking level with that.
Yeah.
Also, that's the title of this episode. I almost want to apologize to the Insane Clown Posse.
Oh no, the title of this episode is Mirrors, how do they work? Or something. Honestly,
how is that possible?
how is that possible? I don't know, man. It could be any number of things. We still have so much to talk about.
Oh
And
no!
I like to name it after one of the weird things that we say, as
Oh, wait,
opposed
wait,
to
wait,
one of the weird things that a celebrity says.
wait. ICP, Insane Chris Posse.
Fuck.
Now you got to do
There's
it.
only one.
I mean,
oh my god, I'm so tired.
let's get over to the North American division.
Let's go over to the North American division where things are not any more sane. Let's be completely real. We're going to start with our qualifiers match, which we called, but not really.
Yeah, Toronto Defiant versus Vancouver Titans. Toronto pulls out the win 3-2, but Vancouver looked a lot stronger than they had previously, and both teams had picked up a new player for this situation, with Vancouver picking up Shockwave and Toronto picking up Zeke, spelled Zykkk.
I mean, points to Vancouver for picking up a literal Decepticon in the shape of a tank.
And his echo was pretty damn nice for the majority of this map. It's just Toronto had him kind of scouted out by the end of it.
Yeah. And I mean, Toronto also has, we were talking about London taking a while to get their team cohesion figured out. Toronto has the edge on Vancouver. Like, my God, they looked so much better. But they also looked better against Toronto, who is not the best team in the NA division. And Toronto still had that edge in terms of, yeah, we've been playing together for a while.
A while, you say?
A while. Cool whip. Yeah. So
when
continuing
I hear
on.
that whistle blowing.
So continuing on.
Yes, Houston Outlaws versus Dallas Fuel in the rematch in... I'm trying to think of a movie that's gone to 7. Would it be The Battle for Texas X? Like...
Jason X is 10.
No, I'm Jason X. Like,
yes,
Jason
but this wasn't
X
in hell.
Neither was Jason X.
Oh, that one was in space. They all kind of run together when you start drinking.
I mean, as you should. Oh, my bad. So what is the 13th Friday? Okay, so it'd be the Battle for Texas Part 7, The New Blood.
But there wasn't any. The New Blood was in the previous match. Look, I'm gonna be a shitbird about all of this. Battle for Texas VII.
So yeah, Dallas picks up the 3-1 win.
Which I'm disappointed. I was hoping for a map 5.
They looked significantly stronger against Houston in general. And then Rialto happened and Doha reached like Super Saiyan 4.
Yeah. But I mean, Decay. You really gotta give it to Decay.
Yeah, I meant to say Decay. Decay went absolutely insane on the Widowmaker. Everyone on Houston was playing like they were terrified of this man, and they should have been.
I mean, Decay is kind of the new Carpe in terms of one-man carry potential. That's
Yeah,
not to say anything bad about the rest of the Fuel, because they were playing very well and very
and
cohesively.
honestly,
But just in terms of one human showing up and running train, Decay is the new Carpe. And
yeah,
that's the
and
title of this episode.
no, it's not. It's Insane Chris Posse.
Who renders these? Anyway, Decay was just completely bonkers.
Yeah, he went absolutely mental. They set the fastest Rialto attack time in history. Um,
Yeah. I feel
and
like Rialto keeps getting new times set.
yeah,
Like
but
Rialto specifically.
yeah, and the fear that Decay inflicted allowed the rest of the Fuel to just play with zero fear, show the Outlaws like no respect, and just slap them around. That
Yeah.
last map was like most of the series was like the first two maps were fairly close. The third map was fairly decisively in Dallas's favor, though not, not like immensely so. That one wasn't close.
Yeah.
Uh,
Rialto is just one of those maps, man. And again,
I mean,
Decay. Out of
yeah,
his mind.
yeah, Rialto just seems to be a map where we periodically in like playoff scenarios will just see people ascend past human form.
I think I was going through and re-uploading some old episodes, and one of them was entitled 90-degree turns and some boats, and that's Rialto. That continues to be Rialto.
Yeah. So up next we had Washington Justice versus the LA Gladiators, and Gladiators clap back with the 3-0 win.
I believe the
Um,
Gladiators marketed this as "Who is the better shield?"
yeah.
Yeah.
So up next, Toronto Defiant took on the Atlanta Reign, and Atlanta slapped them around 3-0.
Again, this isn't terribly surprising given Atlanta's track record and Toronto's track record. And again, Vancouver looked really good against Toronto, but if they'd won, I think we would have seen much the same result
Oh,
in
for
this
sure.
matchup
Yeah,
against the
no,
Reign.
I think in terms of this bracket, they were definitely like the weakest teams in there.
Yeah.
Well, them and the Boston Uprising, although Boston, their last few games, have been looking significantly stronger and took the Paris Eternal to a map 5 before losing it out 3-2.
Which, it's even if you don't win as Boston, you've got to be proud of that, because Paris is one of our, not necessarily the strongest team, but they're up there.
Yeah,
There's no shame in losing to a map 5 to Paris,
not at all. Um,
especially when you're Boston, who has been having nothing but trouble this whole season.
yeah,
And we've talked about the many woes of Boston already.
and they continue like to look like they're functioning well with this new pickup in Punk, and we'll see how they do with Mikey when he finally gets to take to the field.
Yeah, we've
Um,
got a 3-week break, so we'll see what they look like after that.
yeah, up next, Dallas Fuel versus San Francisco Shock in a match that very easily could have, like, very nearly went to map 5.
Yeah.
Dallas, like, up until basically, I think the turning point was Shock perfectly countering the Decay Widow play on Rialto.
And
And
once again, we're back to Rialto.
yeah, no, honestly, like this is one of those things that I point out. Like that's how you can tell a team is super well drilled and coached, because all of their positioning was super careful and really well thought out. They denied Decay like any sort of opportunity. Ons was able to get a lot done on his end, and the desperation to try and make something work kind of forced the Dallas and particularly Doha into making a few mistakes that wound up costing them some fights, and that's in a game where the margin was that tight, and it was that tight. That's all it takes.
And this was the first of the picked matches where the higher seed was able to choose their opponent, and the Shock chose the Fuel.
Yeah.
And the going joke in the fandom was that they saw the Fuel's match against the Outlaws, and that Ons leaned in and went, "I want that one." Like, put me up against Decay. Let's go. Like, that's just the
He just
running joke. I'm sure that's
point
not what
he
happened.
just points like Stitch from Lilo and Stitch and just ugh.
Yeah, pretty
Yeah.
much. Just like, that one. There. Give it to me. Like, yeah,
Yes.
no, sniper battles. Sniper battles are fun to watch.
Yeah, and honestly, that was, I think, one of my favorite matches in the tournament, just because of the really really clever adaptations Shock made. Like, I love watching the Shock because they figure shit out so quickly and know how
Yeah.
to counter it. They they're just so good.
I know people make 5-head jokes, especially with Super, but they've got some brains in that lineup
Yeah,
and some game sense.
absolutely they do. Up next, a more surprising outcome, I think, for most. Atlanta Reign going up against Florida Mayhem, and Florida Mayhem with the decisive 3-1 victory.
See, this, I get this being surprised because so many people put so much faith in Atlanta's lineup, and they have a solid lineup, but Erster's been missing for God knows how long, and Erster has
Mhm.
been a massive playmaker for them. And we can't forget that Florida is our number 2 seed for a reason.
Yeah, and
Like, Florida's not the bottom of the barrel team they used to be, in the same way that Shanghai isn't either. And I think it's taking all of us a while to kind of pull our brains out of the Florida mindset, you know?
well, honestly, like, the thing is, I don't think they're a bad team anymore. I think that they, like, I absolutely, 100% even coming into this, while I did say that out of the teams that were on the bracket prior to the qualifying and match and the picking, I said that I thought they were the weakest out of them. Um, I didn't think that they were bad by any stretch at that point, but I didn't think they were this good. I thought a lot of it came from the fact that they're playing in the comparatively weaker Atlantic Division, and even then, like, in that situation, a team that is kind of mid-table can definitely improve their standings to maybe a little higher than what they are necessarily actually at. But no, they just played lights out. Chris on the Brigida was fucking great. Gangnam Jin looked great on the Baptiste. Yaki on that Tracer is terrifying, and you're, again, this is one of those times where I'm like, you see why I was excited that he got picked up now.
Yeah.
And BQB had, I think, genuinely the most impressive performance I've ever seen out of him.
Yeah, I mean, as much as I miss Saya player, BQB has been playing out of his mind.
Yeah, well, the thing is, Saya's like, I do feel like Saya, you could train him to be good on the Ash, just considering like he's a sniper specialist. But yeah, BQB looked so lights out in this series, which is nuts. Like how much he's evolved this season, because a lot of the times in previous seasons, like he just seemed like, frankly, a mediocre DPS player,
Yeah.
and that's just not the case anymore.
Yeah. Dude took a couple levels and I don't even know what.
Bad
He,
motherfucker.
yeah, he went for it. Alrighty,
So
moving on.
yeah, next was Gladiators versus Philadelphia Fusion, and the Philly Fusion takes out the Gladiators 3-1, and Gladiators once again fall out in the semifinals.
Our cohesion has just had some issues.
Yeah,
It
it
has. I'm sad about that.
was a little up and down.
Yeah, well, it has been for the past couple weeks.
Yeah, and I
I
don't know
mean,
why.
I hopefully it's something we'll be able to address over the course of the break.
Yeah, and I imagine so. Like, I have a lot of faith in Depe as a coach and a manager.
Yeah.
So up next, Paris Eternal versus LA Valiant in a match that I was excited to see, because this one looked to be fairly close, and it did turn out that way. And Valiant ends up taking the 3-2 win in what's probably the last game Paris is going to play before Sparkle comes of age.
Yeah, and this was
And
a
by
six
probably, I
map
mean that it
game.
is.
This
But
was a 6-map game, was it
yeah,
not? Yeah.
yes.
I
Uh,
appreciate the McGravy trash talk beforehand towards, I believe it was Ben Best.
no, it was Nico, and then
It
Ben
was Nico,
Best
you're
stepped
right.
in and like put some fucking respect on Nico's name, and Nico's like, "Dude, chill." Like,
Yeah, yeah. Because
yeah,
McGravy was joking about, it's the last match he's going to play. And people are like, why? What's wrong with you? I'm like, well, Sparkle's coming of age,
yeah.
guys. Like,
Just take the Kirby is coming posters that DC put out when they hired Jack Kirby, and just put Sparkle on them.
Sparkle is coming.
Yes.
And I mean, you gotta feel bad for him, but also appreciate that he's just kind of chill about the shit talking.
Oh yeah, like the thing is, Nico is one of those people who's been in esports for so long that he's just, you
He's an
know,
old soul and nothing phases him.
yeah, he's hit that point where he's chilled out. And honestly, like the team that he was on prior to the Overwatch League, Rogue, was full of big personalities, except for the two relatively chill people in him and Nox. Well, and Soon as well, but Soon is a big personality in his own weirdo way.
Oh, he is.
Yeah, I'm
He
just saying,
really
like,
is.
AK, like, well, here's the thing. That team was Nox, who never made it to Overwatch League, unfortunately, and ended up doing a lot of T2 coaching. But it was Nox, it was Nico, it was Soon, AKM, and then Unco wins, and I'm forgetting someone.
Wins I am not familiar with.
You wouldn't be. He never made it to Overwatch League.
Okay.
Unco, Nox, Soon, Wins, AKM, Nico. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Wins is AKM's brother.
Oh, alrighty.
Yeah, and he was their main support player and has kind of become a meme in the Overwatch community.
Oh, no.
Well, basically, with the reason being, so he was pretty much their Lucio player, and it became a meme in the community that he pretty much just like sat on the payload. Like he was the cart bitch like pretty much entirely. And then when Rogue, is dominating the NA scene in EU, that's fine. But then they get to Korea and they encounter Korean Lucios, which is where a lot of the play that we see from the character kind of got developed today. And his entire team is getting just bullied by Lucios, just booping them all over the place. And he's just like, I'm just sitting on the payload, easy game, easy life. And kind of became a meme from that. And it's just like, you know, Sideshow had a really funny fucking thing on one of his streams where he's just talking about it. Like, I remember talking to, members of Rogue, and they were like about Nico and about Wins, and it was just like, you know, everyone else is doing this thing, and he's like, I do not know what you are talking about. I am utilizing this hero to its maximum potential, and then all of his teammates are just like, motherfucker, like. um, um,
I will say that support life occasionally does mean parking your ass on the payload because everyone else on your team is a kill stealing idiot. But I also play in bronze, and that's a very different support life.
yeah,
So,
and like no other Lucio in the world at the time was doing that, and
yeah.
so he didn't get picked up for Overwatch League, and has continually bitched about it saying that he's ready and he's ready to fucking beat all these kids, and he's never played in contenders. Pretty much after
Hmm.
Overwatch League, he just kind of, instead of continuing to prove himself in any way, he just pouts and whines about it.
And this is why you're not getting signed.
Yeah, and he played in the Overwatch World Cup for Team France and didn't really impress a tremendous amount there. And it's just like he just kind of became a. It's one of those things where it's like he was a player who had a lot of respect and people knew who he was, and it's just like the way he's handled the situation. A lot of people like who knew who he was is just kind of like, I mean, what have you done for me lately? And the
What
people
happened to
who
you, China? You used to be cool.
and the people who didn't know him will continue to not know him because he's just like, I deserve to be here and I'm just gonna hold my breath and wait till you motherfuckers realize. And then that's just
Have
what's been
fun with
happening.
that.
And that's just what's been
Yeah.
happening for like 2.5 years.
Welp. Oh, well.
And it's kind of suck because, again, his brother got signed.
Yeah, which I would imagine makes family reunions fun.
Yeah, I don't know.
Fun.
It beats me. I don't know. Anyway, so Valiant advances to face the Shock, and that's kind of where their run in the tournament ends, with Shock scoring a dominant 3-0 victory.
I mean, is anyone surprised?
No, although to be fair, I feel like the Shock especially, have always had the Valiant's number. Like ever since that first game where the Valiant took the win, the Shocker like, you're not getting it twice.
We've had more than one win against them.
Well, I'm just saying this season.
Oh, yeah. I was gonna say,
No.
overall, hang on a minute.
Yeah, no, this season. Like, I'm sure you've beaten them more than once. In general.
Yeah, no, season 1, we were like the dominant California team.
Yes, I know.
Yeah,
Although season
yeah.
1 Shock and the Shock
Very
at every
different.
other stage are entirely different entities.
Yeah, yep. Yeah, so this one was not a surprise. I would mark the next one as a surprise for most people, myself included.
Yeah, I didn't think that the Florida Mayhem were going to beat the Philadelphia Fusion. It was a match that I thought was going to be at least somewhat competitive after I saw the match against the Reign. But
yeah, Florida just kind of they did it very handily, and we'll talk about this a little later down, but Florida also learned to trash talk before this match, which was
oh yeah,
hysterical.
they I will say the end of the Reign match where Babyface just like, I didn't get a single 1v1 Widow duel, and it's just Mayhem's just spamming like loser and shit at him. that was fucking hilarious.
So we, instead of having what we thought was going to be an orange finals, because that's where we thought we would be, is orange team versus orange team. Instead, we have San Francisco Shock versus the state of oranges, Florida
Yeah.
Mayhem. I'm stretching. Let me have my aerobics today. Orange juice. And Shock take it, but Florida makes it close for a while. Damn.
Yeah.
Florida too.
Yeah. So again, it's one of those things where Florida played really well. They had a great strategy and executed it super well. And they played it so tightly that it's hard for even a team like the Shock to take advantage of any mistakes or weaknesses. And then the Shock do what the Shock do, and as the Shock are the Borg. It's like you have to rotate your phaser frequencies every couple shots, because like as soon as you kill 2 or 3 of the drones, that frequency will no longer work. Their shields have adapted. They will not take any more damage from it.
Legit. And I've got the map pulled up. I've got the match summary pulled up because details, and yeah, it was just straight up back and forth and back and forth and back and forth until on Hollywood, San Francisco went, nah, we're done. And took it back and took a map that they did not choose. Yeah, took a map that they did not choose.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Much. And that's like, again, it was a very good game and a masterclass in seeing how in adaptation, even if it wasn't quite the like 15 round banger that we got in the APAC finals, but it was a great match and one that's absolutely worth watching to see a bunch of different strategies played in this metagame.
I think everyone who stayed up late to watch the APAC finals was probably grateful that this one wasn't as batshit insane as that one, because I
Mhm.
think a lot of people would have just died
Yeah.
of heart attacks. Like, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy.
Yeah, that motherfucker was a long one.
Complete 2.5 hours. 2.5 hours. And just watching Brandon Sideshow utterly lose their minds. My favorite thing is American casters, people living in North America, casting APAC matches because it's fuck o'clock at night and they have to be up and cogent and on their game. And you can do all of those things and still have half your brain in La La Land. And we have seen uh, art. It's just been art. And
Oh,
it's
it makes me
usually
so
Brennan's sideshow, but sometimes it's Uber and Mr. X also just utterly losing their minds. I
well,
think we're going to get a lot less of that now that Wolf and Achilleos are back in Korea and in the right time zone to be able to do it naturally.
yeah.
Like, I don't think we'll get as much complete, ridiculous late night cast insanity, but I love it
Also,
when it happens. It makes me very happy.
Pixie and Avril, like they did a great job casting during the APAC tournament, and I'd be surprised if they're not tapped for that going forward as well. Just to have two casting duos ready to rock on that.
They did do a very good job. I think it might just be because I'm not familiar with them, but I didn't enjoy their casting as much. I don't think they brought as much energy as a lot of our normal casters do.
They're
And again, a
definitely a
lot of
more
our
chilled
known
out pair.
casters, yeah, well, a lot of our known casters are also fucking bonkers. Like,
Yes.
they're great, but they are capital P personalities.
Yeah.
So I don't think. I don't think those two are quite as extreme as some of the other ones we've
Oh, they're
seen, and
absolutely.
therefore it felt a little lacking to me. But that's me.
Whereas I guess one because I've seen them cast before, and two because I think I just have more experience with different casting styles from watching this game for like a year and a half longer. Um,
Legit.
but I don't know. It worked for me because I just kind of the thing is they're just chill guys who like to talk about the game, and that's kind of
Yeah.
refreshing in some capacity.
Yeah, they are. It just we talked about this a bit, I think it was 2 episodes ago, about how most of our casting duos have one relatively chill human being and one human being who is completely over the top, and that Bren and Sideshow don't count because they're both completely over the top, but one of them is zany and one of them is a straight man. So
Yes.
I think the lack of the over the top personality in that casting duo was what kind of made me go, huh, like, I was missing that. I really enjoy that.
Hmm.
But again, that's me and preferences, and this is my first time hearing them cast, and they're not bad. They're good casters. They're
Hmm.
just not what I'm used to in terms of personality sets in casting.
Yeah, and I think they did well enough to kind of earn, more shots at this. I think, if I was, uh, you know, if I was making that decision, I'd be like, yeah, sure, like definitely, let's have them and Achilleos and Wolf just do the APAC matches from here on out at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, there's no reason not to bring them back.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that was our May Melee. It was insane in ways that I don't think any of us could have predicted. The Shang Nine followed by the reverse sweep, I think, being the big one.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
But
that match
there's,
was great.
oh my god, yes, like it just, go back and watch it. Yes, we know the casting is like 3 to 4 seconds behind. I saw someone say pull it open in 2 tabs, put one video slightly behind the other, mute
Mm,
the one that's a little behind, and so you have the audio and the casting from the correctly timed one with the video. Like, I've seen people say that,
big brain
and
plays.
big brain plays.
I
You,
wouldn't. It's too much work. I wouldn't do it, but I appreciate the cleverness of it.
yeah, the things you find on Reddit. Sometimes they're big brain plays, and sometimes it's people complaining about how the video for the finals match has spoilers in it because you know who won the other matches when you know who competes. And it's like, guys, It's a live event. There's only so much you can do.
Yeah, at a
Like,
certain
come on.
I again, I'm sorry, but like it's a sports event. Like it's a sporting event in a tournament format. Neither of these things are one, people don't tend to watch out for spoiling shit in those scenarios anyway. So I don't know what you were expecting. And two, you literally can't post a video that in any way describes the match without spoiling a previous match if you're posting a video from beyond the first round. Like that's
Yeah.
literally not possible.
So I'm wondering if it's the set of fans who are not as familiar with live sports, who don't have that set of experience going into esports and going, well, there's spoilers in the title of this YouTube video. Well, yeah, it's a VOD for a live sporting event. Like people who just who get mad about, oh, this video has spoilers for the Game of Thrones finale in the title the day after the Game of Thrones finale drops. Like, okay, legitimate. Like that makes
Yeah, but
sense.
there's
It's
such a vast gulf in difference between these two things.
absolutely. What I'm saying is, I think that we're looking at the type of fans who don't have experience and don't really see how big that difference is. Like,
Yeah,
you can always kind of tell who this is like baby's first sports team, you know? Like, you can
yeah.
always kind of tell. They're the people that hit harder when their team doesn't do as well or loses a close match. They're the people who get upset about spoilers for a live event that was live 12 hours ago. And I'm sorry that it was live when you were asleep, but you know, that's kind of what happens when you're into a global franchise. Like, it's people who don't have the experience that comes from being a sports fan going into something that is 50% video game and 50% sport. You
Mhm.
can kind of see where that other 50% is lacking. And there's nothing wrong with that. You just need to experience it and learn. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I'm also just firmly in the camp of I have never understood people being like spoilers about sporting events. That genuinely just doesn't make sense to me.
it's just all I can think of is the How I Met Your Mother episode where they were asked to go to a wake instead of watching the Super Bowl. So the whole next day they're trying to avoid spoilers for the Super Bowl. And even if you don't like the Super Bowl or don't watch it, it's pretty hard to avoid spoilers for who won the next day, just in general. And one of the characters is a news anchor, and so they have to talk about it, and she's still trying to avoid spoilers. And it's like, it's a bizarre episode, but it's one of those things. Like, it's spoilers for a live sporting event. Guys, sometimes you just got to bite the bullet and then go back and watch the VOD or the rerun in terms of How I Met Your Mother or whatever. Like, you just, there's only so much you can do. And their integrity as a franchise does not bow to your spoilers' integrity as a fan.
Nope. And also just to make another point on that end, it's just if you really don't want to know, either A, try to avoid going on YouTube until you're ready to watch this stuff. If you're really, if you have that much of a problem with spoilers, or B, we're in quarantine. I like you like never had more of an opportunity for a lot of people. Not everyone. Obviously, some people are essential workers or are in businesses that have decided they're essential for reasons that are reasons. And
Yes.
like obviously that's not the case with everyone, but like I feel like the percentage of people who genuinely would not have been able to watch these games is smaller than it ever would be under any other circumstance.
Yeah, a lot of people with a lot more time. And also, again, we're looking at Memorial Day weekend. So even if you screw up your sleep schedule Friday and Saturday night, you can still do a normal sleep schedule Sunday going into Monday. And For the most part, office workers, etc., again, it's different for retail, it's different for a number of other jobs, have Monday off. So it's, you know, like, again, I chose not to stay up because I know what happens when my sleep schedule gets too screwy. I kind of stop being a functional human being, and I don't like that. So it
Mm-hmm.
was a choice. But yeah, like, you can't fault the organization for doing what they need to do because you don't want to be spoiled. There are ways around that. You can always ask a friend to just send you the link to the VOD of everything. And so that way you just have that. Turn off your recommended feed on YouTube so you don't see anything in that right-hand sidebar and you are good to go. Anyway, we've talked a lot about Reddit. Now, let's talk about cookies. Let's talk about our sponsor this week. Let's talk about Fred's BS, Breads and Spreads by Fred. Fred does cookies right now because, again, things are a little weird because of Corona and quarantine and all of that fun and interesting thing that's making our lives so exciting right now. Hey, Fred does cookies. They're called Brown Sugar Buddies. They're a cross between a spice cookie and a ginger snap and a molasses cookie, and they are unbelievably good, chewy cookies, very flavorful. If you are a hot drink in the morning person, they go really well dunked into your hot drink of choice. If you are in one of the many states that is currently experiencing elevated temperatures, because for some reason some states don't believe in spring and go right to summer, and I say that in California, they also make really good ice cream sandwiches. Get like your vanilla or your butter brickle or even your chocolate in there in between these spice cookies. So good, you guys. So, to obtain Fred's cookies for yourself, head over to fredhebakes.com. That is fredhebakes.com and use coupon code on the point for 20% off your entire order. All of these cookies are fresh, never frozen. They are made to order. They're made in small batches to preserve those fantastic flavors, and you cannot find these in stores. You can only find them by going to fredhebakes.com. And again, coupon code on the point for 20% off your entire order. Fred's BS. Treat yourself because you deserve it. Yeah, we all deserve cookies right now. Holy cow. So, let's continue on to the news. As we've been saying, we're getting a 2-week break. Matches are going to return on June 13th, and we are going to have a July tournament after 3 weeks of play. It's not yet named, but it's probably going to be similar to the May Melee. I kind of like the July Jamboree.
That's I think the most obvious one. Not necessarily that that's a problem, just that it's like I'm not sure what other J word you can use.
Yeah, the problem with going with May Melee, it was so nice and alliterative that it sets a precedent for other months that may not stack up as well to that.
Summer slat.
Wait. Oh, okay, but if we have a July tournament and then play again in August going into September, we could have the September Slam.
Mmm.
Mmm. Oh, too much Young Frankenstein. Okay. So that's that. So it seems like we are going into a few weeks of normal play, a tournament, a few weeks of normal play, a tournament. Like, I'm in. I like this. And I'm not sure what else there is to say about it, aside from I'm going to be sad until Overwatch League comes back, because I miss it when it's gone.
Yeah. I will say, like, as someone who is currently balancing many things between tabletop campaigns and coaching a team and all of this, it'll be nice to have like a week or two where I just have one less thing I need to devote my time and attention to. But it's I am gonna miss it. I am gonna miss it.
It's just a nice thing to have on. And I mean, I listen to VOD while I work because I'm still doing my day job, just work from home. And so I just put on the VOD for batches, and the casting is good enough that I can listen to it and still know what's happening, even while I'm working on other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Appreciate your casters. They do a difficult job, especially when they're loopy at 3 in the morning.
As a caster, It's not easy.
No, it's not. It's one of those jobs where I feel like people go, "Oh, I could do that," without actually understanding what goes into doing that.
Yes,
Like, I could do post-game interviews. I could not do casting.
it takes a lot of practice. Like I think I'm good enough at it now that hypothetically I could be, if I really tried to, I could, get some paid work for it. But it took a lot of practice to get to that
Yeah, like any skill set, you need a lot of practice.
point. Oh yeah, that
Oh, yeah.
that one especially, because thinking and talking and pacing and trying to build storylines, there's a lot of things you need to be doing at the same time.
And it's not easy to have that many plates spinning.
No, it's really not, especially in a game that moves as fast as Overwatch.
Yeah. So, yeah, moving on. In terms of retirements and pickups, we only really seem to have pickups over this past week.
Yeah, it's an interesting little change of pace, isn't it?
Yeah. We talked about Vancouver recruiting a Decepticon scientist and Toronto
Yes.
picking up Zeke.
Yeah, although we haven't really talked much about them.
All right, so let's hear it.
So Shockwave, as you can tell, is a DPS player. He's Danish. He was previously playing on a team called the Raspberry Racers in Contenders EU, with a name that at least some people will find familiar one name that Contenders fans will find familiar, and then one that Overwatch League fans will find familiar. The Contenders guy is Scarippa from Clockwork Vendetta, and KSAA, his now teammate on the Vancouver Titans.
It's nice for one of KSA's teammates to be there. Yay,
Agreed.
teammates.
And prior to that, he was also a player for the Montreal Rebellion.
Nice.
So he's back in the org.
All right.
He's known for he's previously, shown off his Widowmaker, his McCree, his Tracer, and his Hanzo, but pretty much right now, I think we're going to be seeing a lot of Echo out of him.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think at this point he's known for his echo play.
Yeah, like
Holy
I said
hell.
previously.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, because that was just completely batshit insane. One pickup turning around the team.
Yeah, and I feel like it's one pickup adding to their trajectory of improvement,
True.
than necessarily it just jumping, fixing shit in and of itself. But that being said, he looks like a great pickup. I'm glad they have him, and I am interested in seeing him stay. Then we have, on the Toronto side, Zeke, who is a French player. I heard his contract is only a 14-day one, and
Huh.
there were rumors that it was because that the move was made because Surefour decided to step away for a little bit to sort of like reset his mentals. Um,
I believe Surefour has actually said as much, yeah, that he
yeah,
wanted a week or two off.
Yeah, and I think Zeke looked good in there. I think there's definitely a place for him on this roster, though I think the team will also be glad to have Surefour back. Um, Zeke has bounced around a bunch of teams in EU, with previous teams including Gamers Origin, which is where we get Ben Best, Poco, and Yeep, and also Leaf of Team France and Eagle Gaming, that Team EU fans won't shut the fuck up about, even though they haven't existed for like a year at this point.
Whoa! Tell me how you really feel.
It was one of the reason I mention it with that tone is because there was a during the, I think it was the Gauntlet, where all the teams were facing each other. Literally all that Jaws and Leg Day were saying in their cast were, but yeah, if Eagle Gaming was here, all these guys would be fucked. And it's just over and over, and I'm like, all right,
Okay.
we get it,
But they're not.
but they're
They're
not.
not here.
Yeah. HSL Esports, who have had a large number of different EU players kind of come and go through their roster. People like what's funny is guys named Ding and Fisher, who are not the Ding nor the Fisher that you think they are. Uh, not a lot of people who have made it up to the Overwatch League level, but a lot of people you would recognize from contenders because Ding and Fisher both played for Team Denmark. RCK, formerly of the Dallas Fuel and Boston Uprising, ended up there. They have another famous Danish player from in the form of Zapray. You would probably recognize A10 from him playing on Team Netherlands in the World Cup. Tech 36, Chubbs, and FD God, all of Team France, and the last one, now of the Paris Eternal, all played on that team. There's a lot of players who have come through there and are pretty big names in the EU. And most recently, he was playing for a Contenders NA team called First Impact.
Oh, okay, I've heard that name.
Or Third Impact. I always get First Generation and Third Impact. Fuck that.
Well, one's an Evangelion reference.
Yes.
The other one, I got nothing.
So yeah, that's kind of their history as players, and he's known mostly for his projectile play, and like Hanzo and Mei, I think, is kind of what he's most well known for. He's broken out a Tracer on occasion, but it's that's kind of what we see.
Yeah, well, and that 2-week contract is going to be up in the middle of, break.
Yeah,
so we'll see how that goes.
We'll see if they decide to keep him around or if he's going back to Third Impact when Surefour is ready to return. So
speaking of someone on a 2-week contract that is sticking around, Janu is sticking around with the Washington Justice.
Which, again, I think it's a big get for the Justice, though I don't necessarily think that it's going to fix their problems. No word on Stitch whether or not he's going to be there, so we'll see how that turns out.
However, and again, we record these on Thursdays, so at the moment it's May 28th. They could drop an announcement tomorrow about something.
Yeah.
They usually do. Usually we record and then something goes down on Friday.
Yep. But yeah, for now they have their new off tank in Janu, and we'll see if they pick up Stitch or if they make other DPS pickups. I think they should make other DPS pickups even if they do pick up Stitch. Like having a third guy kind of flexing him out is just good practices. So up next, going back up north to Toronto, they've picked up Numlocked as their tank coach, and that genuinely makes me happy because Numlocked is one of those players who has been around since literally the start of Overwatch. Like played in tournaments in the closed beta.
Oh wow.
Yeah, a team called G2 Esports, which is also where we kind of saw the debut of Nox, who I talked about a bit before, and Tech 36 and Shadowburn.
Yep.
And yeah, it was. They were how old this team is. They played a tournament. They formed in November of 2015.
What year is it?
Yeah.
The passage of time confuses me.
And he's bounced around from a whole bunch of different teams. Team Dignitas and NRG Esports before the foundation of the Overwatch League, then picked up for the LA Valiant and kind of stuck in that ill-fated sister team before getting dropped, and after streaming for a while, signing with British Hurricane, then joining Team Envy in Contenders NA for their strongest run, then back to EU with the Finnish Narikki Esports, then back to Montreal Rebellion until they disbanded, and he's made his way back into Overwatch League, though not in the way that I think he would have expected.
So this is his first role as a coach, then.
Yes.
We're seeing a lot of players become coaches this season.
Yeah, we are, and I think that that's honestly a good thing, just because players transitioning into coaching roles generally, it's a good sign for if they want to be continually involved in the esport past the point where they can play it, that shows a certain amount of retention. And also, people who have been in the scene for a long time have a lot to offer, and also they have a fair bit of experience in knowing what it is players and want in a coach and what is helpful, and they have maybe been on that other side more than some people who were kind of armchair experts in the way that some coaches are. Like, obviously all of them have played the game, but not all of them have played the game competitively at a very high level for a very long time.
Point. So it will be interesting to see how that goes.
Yeah.
And then in terms of joining teams as coaches.
Yeah, we have Unter joining the LA Valiant as an assistant coach, wasn't it?
Yeah. And that was announced today.
Yeah, that was a fairly recent one. And Unter is, he's an Aussie. He had previously been a coach for the British Hurricane. And prior to that, he was also a pretty common fixture in Contenders Australia / Oceanic for a very long time, as since 2017 was part of Blank Esports' sister roster, Blank Blue, and then moved on to a team called Order with a lot of his former teammates, and they had a very long, and they had a pretty long run near the top of Contenders Australia, and then had a pretty successful run as a coach for the British Hurricane. So I think it's a good pickup.
I'm just kind of amused that the Valiant literally can't go a season without an Aussie.
No, they once you go Aussie, you can't think of a fucking pun to finish the joke, I guess.
Once you go down under, you never come back over.
That works.
Yeah. It's late and I'm tired.
Yeah.
All right. So that's it for pickups.
Fair, they still did have an Aussie on the team, Gunba.
Ah. Okay.
Yeah, he's an Aussie.
Okay. 2 then.
Yeah.
So that I feel like we're probably going to have a lot more pickups over the break.
Oh, for sure.
But I think we'll have to wait and see what happens there. Our favorite phrase, wait and see. Token drops are back for the Overwatch League.
Yay!
People have been losing their minds for this one. Yeah, and it's a little bit of a process. It involves going to the Overwatch League website, logging in with your Blizzard account, and then clicking the banner from the home page to go to the page to watch the match. Like, that seems to be the only way it works. If you navigate to the match page any other way, for some reason, it doesn't take. There have been a few glitches. There have been a number of people reporting that they didn't get their tokens, or that their tokens are delayed or something. Like, it's not a perfect system, but it's definitely better than nothing. And I think it's more functional than not.
Yeah, I think so. It's definitely less streamlined than it was with Twitch, but
you can only do so much. And you can also evidently watch games from the Overwatch League app as well.
Yes, you can.
Yeah. So for those of you who still have room on your tablets and phones and whatnot, there is an app. So I don't.
I've had it. I admittedly don't use it all that much, but it's there. And I'm very happy to have tokens back. I want to keep collecting skins because I'm a few away from having all the Dallas ones, and now I regret spending the tokens that I did on the Vancouver ones after what they did to my boys.
Yeah. Well, you can always swap them off.
I have.
Yeah. All right, continuing on, we have the Lunatic High versus Runaway exhibition match coming up, and the development here is that. Yeah. Sorry, I forgot to leave room for the CJ reaction. The development here is that Wolf and Achilleos are going to do the English language cast. They're doing it from quarantine in Korea, but they're doing it.
Hell yes.
So remind me of the date and time for that.
So the show match will be happening on May 31st. It'll
Couple
be
of
shown.
days.
Yeah, a couple of days. Oh, I'm so ready, dude. And so I believe it's going to be at 5 p.m. in Korea.
So it's going to be, I assume, early morning here. Another, for us, very late night cast.
Let's see, 1 a.m.
Yep.
It's not
So the
too
usual.
bad. I'll be up to fucking do that.
Nice. So yeah, tune in for that, or I assume that there will be VOD for that. Wherever it winds up streaming, I assume we'll be able to watch it.
Oh, Jae Hung is in for Lunatic High, so we've got pretty much everyone except Eska now.
Dang. And this is streaming on Contenders channel. This is on Twitch, on YouTube.
It's going to be on the Overwatch League official channel on YouTube, the Overwatch official channel on Twitch, and something called Naver Esports. I don't know what the fuck it is, and also Afrika TV in Korea because Afrika is a big streaming service over there.
So you either stay up late, like it's tradition at this point for fans of APAC Overwatch League, or you catch the VOD the next day, but either way, watch it.
Yeah, also, fun fact, Afrika TV used to actually have Overwatch teams that were called Afrika Freaks Red and Afrika Freaks Blue. And you would know a lot of the players on these teams.
You're having a lot of fun with the history lessons today, aren't you?
I am. I enjoy it.
All right, who are the players on Red versus Blue?
Okay, so Afrika Freaks Blue, you would know IDK. You would know Arhan. Kalios from his brief stint on the Boston Uprising. You would know Mono.
Yeah.
Ryder, who would later become coach of the Florida Mayhem, was a player for them.
Is Ryder still coaching the Florida Mayhem, or who is that now?
No, Florida Mayhem's current coach is Yaki.
Okay.
Or not Yaki, Kuki.
I was like, what?
No, it's Kuki, formerly of the Valiant.
That's right. That's right.
Also, Jin, who is now a coach for the Guangzhou Charge, was on there. And Afrika Freaks Red has Rio, Sansam, Quartermain, and also former coach for AF Blue, Tyrone.
Nice. Man, I haven't heard the name Quartermain in a while.
Well, he's still around. He's coaching right now. He's coaching for Shanghai.
I just haven't heard it. That's more a me thing than it is a him thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, watch the match. Should be fun. On to far less fun news. BlizzCon 2020 is officially canceled.
Yeah.
They're gonna do... Yeah, they're going to try to do some online things. They are going to find alternatives for the esports tournaments that usually take place at BlizzCon, but they are doing the responsible thing and canceling a mass gathering in the time of a pandemic.
Yeah.
And I know that there's, it's unpredictable. We don't know what's going to happen, yada, yada, yada. But the way things are now, the current prediction is that there will likely be another wave of coronavirus in the winter months. So early November, even though we're in Los Angeles, counts as a winter month. And you really don't want to be bringing people in internationally into a crowded convention space and also Disneyland right next door. Like, this
Yeah.
is just not a good plan. So good
Also,
for Blizzard for being responsible and canceling it beforehand.
yeah, as someone who's been to BlizzCon several times, it is immensely packed and crowded at every stage. Like, it would be a fucking breeding ground for problems.
Yeah.
It makes me sad because I love it. I get to see a lot of people there that I don't necessarily get to see elsewhere quite as much. And I love being around all the esports stuff, and just it's always an incredible time. But it's definitely for the best that it is put on the back burner for now. Um, I will say one thing that I part of me still wants to like drive down and just kind of drive by, because every time I've been to BlizzCon, there's this one religious weirdo with a fucking sign just like calling out people for idolatry, and I'm not in Anaheim often enough to like know if he's just there or if it's and yeah, I just want to see if he's there all the time. And it was like one of my favorite things the first time I went, just because this dude made me laugh so fucking hard. Because I literally,
Double-sided yellow sign.
yes.
Okay, yeah, those are just convention mainstays. Like,
Oh,
there's one of
oh,
them
does
at
he just
every
go?
con.
Oh, does he? Is that just a thing in this area?
It's kind of a thing in general, but religious protesters at conventions, especially in California, absolutely.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. Like, I went to conventions all the time in New York, and I never saw that shit.
Oh yeah,
And
no,
it was always just like I didn't see anyone else. It was just this one guy, and
yeah,
he.
the only one that gets crowds is really San Diego Comic-Con.
Mhm,
There was a handful of them at Anime Expo, I believe. I
mhm.
actually wound up running, went to Comic-Con a number of years ago, and someone's walking around with their sign, and then this jerk dressed as Arthur Dent is following him around, yelling at him, and I actually wound up telling off the cosplayer because
Like,
they were going after this
just
guy.
don't engage.
Yeah, no, well, and the guy, he didn't have, like, a lot of them will have stereos or they'll be yelling. This guy was just walking around silently, holding his sign, not hurting anybody. So
Like,
I wound up taking down the cosplayer for going after the religious protester, and that's something I never thought I'd do.
yeah, it's one of those things. Like, I don't want those guys around as like much as the rest. I don't want them around as much as the next guy, because it's just like an irritant. Well, I say that, but I was literally talking about like that guy being one of my favorite things because of how hard. I was walking in the convention one time, and I just he walked by him and he just goes, "It's not about Diablo, it's about Jesus Christ. It's not about and he just goes, "It's not about Super Mario, it's about Jesus Christ." Like, towards me and like the people in my vicinity, and I just immediately just went like
Okay, it's not about Diablo, it's about Jesus Christ is amazing.
and then it's not about Super
Amazing.
Mario, it's about Jesus Christ immediately afterwards, and I'm like, there is no connection here.
I don't mind the Jesus saves people. I mind the you're going to hell people. And oh boy, is there a difference between the two groups. Like, you can
Yeah.
tell.
Oh yeah.
If you're just standing there with your sign and your speaker, I don't care. If you are yelling at people, you're done. Like, Hmm. 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 Remove the log from your eye, ladies and gentlemen.
So,
Anyway,
speaking of people who are done, Zoe murdering Custa live on
we
camera.
skipped. That's in our fun shit section.
I know, but
Yeah,
we've
yeah.
sprinkled in stuff throughout the rest of the show. I didn't think it was a specific order because we mentioned Florida learning to trash talk a fucking age ago. We mentioned Brennan's sideshow transcending reality during the APAC finals an age ago. Why the fuck can't this be now time?
Because I wanted to go into detail for those. Anyway, we'll do things out of order. The outline isn't concrete. It's more like guidelines. Yeah. Zoe murdering Custa live on camera brought me so much life. And for those of you going, what? Custa's dead? He was talking about the Valiant's new lineup. Because I think Zoe actually pitched him this question, talking about the Valiant's new lineup and them making changes, etc. And he kind of concluded with, yeah, they made these changes, but they know what they're doing. And Zoe made a comment about, yeah, I figured they were up to something when they terminated your contract. It's just like, oh my God.
Didn't she say
She,
like your useless career or something at some point?
I don't, just something, it was, I knew they were up to something when they dropped you, or something like that. Like, it was, I knew they were up to something. And it just, oh my God. It was full on, I'm going to end this man's entire career because it was beautiful. I screamed and then I started laughing my ass off. I'm pretty sure the neighbors are worried about me at this point, but that's okay.
Yeah,
Like,
I was cackling.
that's one of the single, because the desk is, let's be real, the desk is Custa and Reinforce going at it and talking about their former careers and arguing, and Zoe just trying super hard to wrangle people who don't necessarily want to pay attention. And I've done the lead host thing before, trying to wrangle people who like to just spin off topic and you never get anything done. Like, I've been there, not necessarily in this capacity. So watching her just slide in and casually commit murder was unbelievable.
It was so good.
She deserves every good thing coming to her and has absolutely is killing it in her lead host job. Like, yes, queen. And I
Yes,
guess right before the break, Custa went, I'm leaving. She's like, I'm quitting.
so good.
Man, oh, it was so wonderful. There was that Florida learning to trash talk at Philly's expense also came from the desk because it was, Dogman trash talking beforehand and then having to eat his words after
Mhm.
Atlanta got rained on, I guess. And so Florida's Twitter account, God bless, said, oh, okay, we need to trash talk beforehand for it to count. Okay, Philly, and rattled off a couple of insults and then at the end said, and your cheesesteaks aren't very good either. Just went for it. And Philly wrote something back about, come on, you're Florida. Just, making jokes about Florida is the easiest thing to do because they are Florida. And so, with that laid out, Florida coming back after the win and doubled down on the cheesesteaks thing.
It was so good.
Like, I'm going to pull up that Twitter because Florida's social media team, Twitter and graphics, are just on point.
They've
Unbelievably
they've
good.
leveled up from being like the worst at everything in season 1.
It's, I believe, Brandon and Anthony.
Oh yeah.
I believe, yeah, and
Yeah.
they are just killing it. And they're also tweeting a hell of a lot because I'm having to scroll like crazy to get back to those days. But they're having a very good time, and I can very much appreciate just running train. Yeah, so they wrote, the desk gave us some heat for only trash talking after we won yesterday. Fair. Let's make this a bit more interesting. Fusion. Cheesesteaks suck. Your town is nowhere as cool as Miami or Orlando, and this time you don't have that obnoxious crowd to back you up. Bring it on. And And Philly wrote back, at least we can dedicate ourselves to only one city. What's Florida actually known for anyway, aside from alligators and old people? Fans in person are great, but their support online is just as strong.
I
And then
mean,
the official Overwatch League Twitter, the official one, wrote back, what's Florida known for? Cuban food. Really good Cuban food.
that's true. My comeback if I was Philadelphia would be hard drugs. But
Yeah, I mean they can't tweet that. So, and then the San Francisco Shock, who is also on top of their Twitter game, posted the "Mom, who's your favorite? Sweetie, I love you both equally," and then "It's you by a lot," with Overwatch League as the mom, and then the two kids as Philly and Mayhem.
mm-hmm.
But yeah, they had. I was wrong. They did not come back and double down about the cheesesteaks. I just made that up because it's fun. Always good to check your facts, kids. But yeah, just they went after the cheesesteaks, and so many people in the comments just threw hands over that. So Florida learning to trash talk
Yep.
pre-match instead of post is beautiful. Brandon Sideshow transcending reality during APAC finals is yeah, it's them continually saying the sun is coming up. It's 7 a.m. I can see the sunlight outside, and we're here talking about this. And again, part of the reason I remember Junkertown, we talked about. Oh my god, I'm losing my mind. We talked about Fitz playing out of his mind. Well, part of it was them just Fitz would make a kill, and then because of the delay, 2 seconds later, oh my god, Fitz, you can't just do that. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
completely, like God help you if
It,
you're wearing headphones during that match. It will blow out your headphones
oh
because
yeah,
they
no,
just
they're
went nuts.
well. These fuckers always pop off. That's what they do.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, but
That's how it.
particularly it's that, but it's also that it's 7:30 a.m. They've been up since at least 4 getting ready for this. Goodness knows if they actually went to bed the previous night or if they decided to just run it straight through. Everyone's got a different strategy for staying up all hours of the night, but they just it's partially an incredible match, partially their personalities, and partially the fact that you know that they are sleep deprived either coming or going, and that they are just half brain going at it. And it's
Yep.
beautiful.
They are in that moment two halves of a whole idiot.
I wouldn't go that far. I mean, they still know what's going on. They're still functional and they're still very good casters. They're
Oh yeah,
just
I know,
not
but
all there.
watch them on stream, on their own streams at some point. Just
True. Look, everyone's bonkers on their own stream. There's professionalism and then there's being back on your shit. I was at least vaguely professional when I was hosting on AfterBuzz, but you see my reaction videos and it's all just a lot of fuck it. So,
yeah,
yeah, you put on the suit jacket and you act like you know what you're doing when you're on the clock. And when you're off the clock, that's when we get Brenji and Maker.
yep.
Anyway, and in terms of last little
And
bits of
side
fun
throw.
bits, and side throw, bless them. And just this, the Overwatch League Stats Lab will now allow you to jump to the VOD of a specific team fight. If you use the Stats Lab on the OWL site, you can now go to specific fights to watch them, which, wow. Thank you, Captain Planet.
Thank God.
Not having to look at a 2-hour VOD and try to go forwards and backwards to figure out where the hell that fight is. Nope, just click. There you go.
Yeah, I mean,
You want to
yeah,
see
it's one of
that
those
McGravy
things.
5K Diva Bomb? Let's go.
Yeah, it's such a helpful thing. Again, as someone who watches these games all the time, both for the purposes of this and because coaching, but
Yeah.
whoo,
But yeah, that is a nice new feature. Everyone go say thank you to Captain Planet for getting that going.
yes,
And also all of the
do
lovely humans who do all the programming and whatnot on the site, because that's not easy. Yeah,
not
and
even a little
our
bit.
last little bit of. Yeah, no. And our last little bit of news, such as it is very, very us specific, but I can't help but laugh. So while Custa was still playing with the Valiant, part of the Valiant's media team, they would do what they called the Custa News Network. It was a little weekly show. He'd go over what happened in the league, he'd talk about memes, all that fun shit. And he always had a segment called You Hate to See It. And it was a gaff, someone falling off the ledge, him going up for the walkout and then turning in the wrong direction, just stuff like that. And then the desk for the official broadcast started doing a You Hate to See It segment. And he did his next You Hate to See It on the desk for stealing his segment. And now he's on the desk, so, it's a phrase. But it's one of those like, yeah, he got a little, it was kind of showy upset, but he might have been actually upset underneath it. We don't actually know. So I bring this up because the Valiant are doing a new content, more content for their YouTube channel. They're doing a new talk show, and they're calling it On the Point. I saw the announcement in the Discord, and I damn near dropped my phone. I was like, really? I've been betrayed by my own team. So now I know how Custa feels, and that's so weird. Yeah. It's fun.
I do want to add one thing to the end of this.
Oh, please do. Please do. This is just me laughing about this.
This is a touch more serious.
Okay.
Thank you to all the Overwatch teams who spoke out about the murder of Floyd George.
Yes.
Or George
Thank
Floyd.
you. Yeah. Thank you to everyone who fucked up and did the thing.
Yeah.
Seeing that come.
Washington Justice, Florida Mayhem, Los Angeles Valiant. If anyone else has said it as of now, and I haven't noticed that, I apologize. But yeah, you are 100% right to speak out against this. George Floyd, his death was entirely unnecessary and horrible, and part of this repeating pattern of fucking violence and racism and just all sorts of ugly shit that's happening in our country right now. And just
for those of you who may have, for those of you who may have somehow missed the news, he was killed by a cop kneeling on his neck, which you don't do. I feel like I shouldn't have to say that, and yet. So, support the protesters. Just do a quick search through Google, and there are many a link to organizations that are supporting the protesters, helping to bail protesters out of jail, because you can be arrested and held for protesting. So there's bail support for them. There is one official GoFundMe for his family. You can find that link too. Yeah. Thank you to the teams who spoke out about this. I can honestly say I was not expecting it from any of the official team channels, but yeah.
I don't think anyone was, but I'm really glad that they did. And the bigger and louder the response to this injustice, maybe it'll eventually become a little less horrifyingly common.
Yeah. And remember, 3 spoonfuls of baking soda in a glass of water mixed together neutralizes tear gas. So, be careful. If you are protesting, be careful. If you are supporting the protesters, do what you can. And as always, as we sign out in this completely batshit insane time, support your medical personnel, support your essential workers, stay safe, stay indoors if you are able. Take care of yourselves, take care of your neighbors. All right. I am Katie. You can find me on the social medias and on YouTube and Twitch at Kiaxet. That is Kiaxet.
I am CJ. You can find me on Twitter at @the_rage_nerd.
We are on the Twitters at OnThePointPod. Take care of yourselves. And I think that's everything, yeah?
I really hope so, because if there's anything we're forgetting, it's just not happening. We don't. This shouldn't. This should be it.
This should be it. Let's C9.